Welcome back to the Pylon Cam. It's your boy Mike, and I have another mock draft for you. This is my first mock draft of the year. Usually by this time I have a bunch of mock drafts up, but this year was a little bit different. I kind of wanted to wait and see and kind of let the college football season play out before we started talking about prospects as first-round talents, and they slowly just tumble out of the first round. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into the mock draft. In my opinion, I don't think the draft starts until pick 5 because let's just keep it completely honest. The first pick is going to be Caleb Williams because I know a lot of Bears fans like Justin Fields. I have been a big Justin Fields fan myself. I've been a big advocate for Justin Fields before he was even drafted. The Jets should have taken him at 2 over Zach Wilson, but that didn't happen, and he ended up going to the Chicago Bears. Was he given a fair shake? No, absolutely not. The Bears haven't really found their identity. They're still kind of searching for it, but at this time, they've actually developed a team that is starting to get an identity, and they're putting the right pieces in place. I'm still kind of hesitant with Eberflus as the head coach, but to his defense, he's done a really good job with building his defense. He solved his side of the ball. But with Caleb Williams and Justin Fields, the argument, I've gone back and forth on it, but what I keep coming back to is, let's just say Justin Fields does develop, right? And you pay him, then everything's fine. You're still paying Justin Fields, so that limits what you can put around him, but you have a franchise quarterback. But let's say he doesn't develop, and you're stuck with the same player that you have this past year who did have his best year. He took another step. Was it the step you wanted to see? No, you probably wanted to see him make it to the playoffs and maybe win a game. But Caleb Williams, to me, he's the biggest project of the top 3 quarterbacks. I'm not saying that as a knock. It just is what it is. Patrick Mahomes was viewed as a project. Josh Allen was viewed as a project. They ended up being the best quarterbacks from their class. Like, that's not a knock saying that this kid he has this immense talent. He just needs to learn to do the fundamentals correctly and take what's there instead of playing hero ball every play. But the reason why Caleb Williams is going to go number 1 overall is because the upside is that high. For me, I don't see... Well, we'll save comps for another day. But I do think that Chicago is heavily linked to Caleb Williams. I think they will trade Justin Fields. And I didn't even mention resetting the salary clock. Like, you're not going to have to pay a quarterback for 4 years. And this is another point why you should kind of, like, against Justin Fields. If Caleb Williams comes in and gives you the same production Justin Fields just gave you in his best year, you're getting it for free, as opposed to getting it while you're paying Justin Fields and still hoping he takes that next step. But I picked 2 Washington Commanders. It's going to be Drake May. I don't think there's any scenario where they don't take a quarterback. I will hear the argument that it could be Jaden Daniels because I am a big Jaden Daniels fan. I think that Jaden Daniels, I think the argument that these quarterbacks are older or they're playing with elite talent around them, I think it's kind of foolish. We've seen Joe Burrow, we've seen CJ Stroud come into the league and light the league on fire. Like, they're older, whatever. Quarterback is the hardest position in all of sports to predict. It's the hardest to project. There's not really a lot of analytics behind a quarterback in college that is surefire this kid's going to succeed. To me, it really is all about landing spot, coaching, and obviously having the traits. There's a huge gap between what Josh Allen is as a human being to what Brock Purdy is or Mac Jones or Tua is as a human being. But then at pick 3, I know Marvin Harrison is the better player, but I still think that the pick is going to be Jaden Daniels. I think that with what Gerard Mayo said about we're going to take, the best player at a very important position, I think with that, how I'm interpreting that is we're going to take the best quarterback available, whether that's Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Jaden Daniels, because anything could happen. Like, I'm not going to rule out that. I don't think Caleb Williams falls out of pick 2, but Drake May could fall to pick 3 in a scenario. And I think Gerard Mayo is saying that they're going to take the best player available, the best quarterback available. And I think that's a lot of the reason why Bill Belichick left or ended up leaving New England is because he didn't want to be a part of a team that's going to be developing a quarterback. He wanted to go and compete with the team. That's why I think he's going to go to Atlanta, which we'll talk about at pick 8 with Atlanta. Because I think that, we'll get to it. And then pick 4, obviously, the Cardinals are going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. And if there is a scenario where the Patriots take Marvin Harrison, then the Cardinals are going to take Malik Neighbors. This is nothing new. This is what I have thought how the draft is going to pan out for about a month now. And I still think that it's going to pan out this way. I don't see any scenario where the top 3 teams are trading back or not taking a quarterback. Just it is what it is. And then at pick 5, this is where I think the draft starts, because I just want to pull something up to make sure I'm not speaking anything that's not accurate. So I've looked at the Chargers roster. I finished my phase 1 evaluations of all 32 teams, which includes who's their head coach, who are their pending free agents, what's their cap space like, top priorities in the offseason, which everything's going to change when free agency shakes out and all of that stuff. But with the Chargers, there is so much to work on. I was in the camp of, they're just going to take Malik Neighbors. That's the no-brainer. But the more I looked at it, there is so much work to be done. And I think what this pick is going to be the most dependent on who they hire as their head coach. Because if they hire Harbaugh, I think that this is going to be offensive tackle. And I hear the argument of get a weapon, because you didn't see what you wanted to see from Quentin Johnston. Mike Williams has an out after this year. You could get out of his contract, and Keenan Allen is older and might become a cap casualty. So what I would do, it's just like the thing I kept thinking of is like who's going to come up is trade back in this spot, because you have about negative $45 million in cap space. So, and Corey Linsley's retiring, so you need a center. You need basically everything from left tackle or from left guard to right tackle is trash, and you have no center now. So, my gut is saying take Olu Fashanu, but if you want to kind of help out the offensive line and get a weapon, it's go Brock Bowers, who there is, some of the analytical nerds on Twitter, myself included, there's a lot of discussion just now surfacing about, is Brock Bowers in contention for a top 3 wide receiver in this class if he was a wide receiver, just given the yards per route run, ADOT metrics. People see tight end and kind of freak out, and you see what happened with Kyle Pitts and how that has kind of played out in the NFL, and I don't blame that on him. I blame it more on the Atlanta Falcons being dysfunctional. Whereas if Kyle Pitts went to Cincinnati or Miami or some other team that wasn't Atlanta that had a quarterback and didn't have an active terrorist as their head coach in Arthur Smith, I think the common conception or perspective of Kyle Pitts is much different. So with what I'm going to do here is I think I'm going to take Brock Bowers, because playing at Georgia, he's already proven the ability to be a run blocker. You're adding a weapon, an elite weapon for Justin Herbert in case you do go ahead and get out of Mike Williams' contract or Quentin Johnston doesn't take that step. But I think that actually wide receiver would be the third option. And if I were to take a wide receiver, I think that I would take Rome Odunze, because I have a tweet on Twitter, and I'll link it in the description, about I think that Rome Odunze may not be better than Malik Neighbors. I don't think he's better than Malik Neighbors, but he is the receiver that the Chargers always go after. They're always going after these 6'2", big body, jump ball receivers. I mean, look at Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Quentin Johnston. Even Josh Palmer fits that mold of they want a contested catch guy. Whereas for the Giants, who are picking at 6, Malik Neighbors is a better fit for a Brian Daboll offense and for a conservative quarterback like Daniel Jones. Malik Neighbors' home run ability to take a slant or a curl or any sort of route the distance, I could see the Chargers actually trading back one spot even if they're set on Rome Odunze to get a few extra picks and get their guy. And let the Giants, who have been an aggressive organization, as the resident Giants fan, have been an aggressive organization under Joe Shea, and I have a tweet outlining this whole trade scenario. We saw the Giants trade up just one spot last year for Deonte Banks. I could see them asking the Chargers what they want to move back a spot to make sure they could get Malik Neighbors, because they're not going to be in contention to take Jaden Daniels, to trade up for any of these quarterbacks, and it's way too early to take Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix. I'm not even sold that there's going to be more than 4 quarterbacks taken in the first round, despite this class being as good as it is, because every quarterback has its issue. So I think that, with the Giants and the Chargers, the 2 picks are pretty easy. It's going to be, well, the Chargers not, but the Giants will be either Malik Neighbors or Brock Bowers, I think. I think that I've kind of gotten to that, settled in that camp so far. Things will change when free agency happens, but sorry I didn't go super in-depth with the Giants, but they're going to be taking Malik Neighbors. And then at pick 7, the Titans. I'm still working on my rankings. Follow me on Twitter. The handle's in the corner of my offensive tackle 1. Because for me, it depends on the state of the franchise. And what I mean by that is, like, for the Titans, who are stripping everything down and building this thing brick by brick from square one, the pick for me is Olu Fashanu from Penn State, because he's only 21. He has strength concerns. That's the knock on him. He's a very good pass protector. He's probably the best pass protector in the class. Not even close. At age 21. But the run blocking, the strength, it comes up on tape. He's getting beat by guys who are half his size, getting moved way more than you would think by guys half his size. But for an organization like the Titans, a franchise like the Titans who are building this thing from scratch, it makes more sense to get the higher upside guy than go ahead and take Joe Alt, who's ready to play now. Where Olu is still ready to play now. It's not like a Broderick Jones situation or in a Kemikwanu situation. That's not what I'm saying. But, like, Olu, he has, like, I don't want to say, he has all pro level potential. I mean, so does Joe Alt, but Olu is unquestioned. You ask anybody who their OT1 is, and the debate will be had. But if you ask them who has higher potential, it's Olu every single time. It's not even close. Then with the Falcons at pick 8, here's where we're going to talk about the Falcons coaching situation. I think Bill Belichick is 100% going to end up being the coach of the Atlanta Falcons. And what that means is no Justin Fields. That means no quarterback at pick 8. I think they're going to go defense, and they're going to sign a vet. You know, like, people forget, like, if Russell Wilson gets cut, the Broncos are paying his 2024 salary. I think, if I'm understanding it correctly, the Broncos are paying his 2024 salary. So you could potentially sign Russ on a vet minimum for 1 year while the Broncos pay his salary, and then open up contract extension talks after the season, depending on how it goes. Kirk Cousins, potential free agent, who also said he wants to play with Bill Belichick. So the pick I went with here is Dallas Turner from Alabama. I think Dallas Turner is unquestionably edge 1, with the argument for Liatu Latu. But Liatu Latu, though he might be better, he's not a better athlete. He's more productive. He's the most productive edge rusher in this entire class. It's not even close. But he had to medically retire from football twice. And that is, we've seen, like, you know, the Browns just played last week in the wild card, and I just kept thinking to myself, why did Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah fall to round 2? And then I remembered on draft weekend or draft week, something surfaced about he had a heart condition. I mean, we're talking about a top 15 pick who fell to, like, pick 40. Pick 42 to be specific, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And he's one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL. So stuff like that happens all the time. I mean, it's going to happen to Michael Penix. Michael Penix, I think, if he does get drafted in the first round, a team's going to come up for him and take him back end round 1 to have that 5th-year option. Or it'll just be like Will Levis, where he's going to fall to the second round and a team's going to come up a few spots to come get him at the top of round 2. So I'm going with Dallas Turner here for Atlanta. I like the idea of Rome Odunze, but I think with Bill Belichick having his hand in this, I don't think he's going to be the GM of the Falcons or play the same role like he did with the Patriots. But I think Drake London is a player who just criminally underrated. I mean, completely held back by quarterback play. He is so good. Like, he is a breakout waiting to happen. I mean, if they get Kirk Cousins, and they have Kyle Pitts, like, we still have yet to see Kyle Pitts unleashed. Bijan's going to get a much bigger workload with New England if Bill comes to town. So, like, you don't really need that second perimeter weapon because you have Kyle Pitts, you have Bijan, you have Drake London, who is so good at football. Bears at pick 9. Here's the thing. Everybody keeps saying, like, oh, the Bears' offensive line is trash. That's not wrong, but it's not the tackles that are bad. It's the interior that's pretty bad. Center play is bad. Guard play is bad. But what we see happen so often is teams will draft a quarterback and then get him an elite weapon the year after in round 1. Like, the one that comes to mind, obviously, is Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, or Tua and Jalen Waddle. Or teams will acquire a quarterback like Jalen Hurts and then get him a weapon as an A.J. Brown. Or Justin Fields, they tried to get him DJ Moore, who did play really, really well this year. And I think you have the opportunity to take a 1C type player in Rome Odunze, who's a borderline blue chip prospect, for someone like Caleb Williams, who likes to push the ball down the field. I think it's an easy pick for the Bears. Home run first round. You get the top quarterback prospect, and you get a top receiver prospect. Here we go at pick 10 with the Jets. This is a layup. It's Joe Alt. I think Joe Alt or Talisi Fuaga are the two tackles in play here. There's a chance that Joe Alt doesn't fall, but I think what is going to make him fall is that Bill Belichick will be the the coach of the Atlanta Falcons. And if it was up, this is what I mean by it depends on where the franchise is at. Like, for the Jets, if they could have the choice of who's gonna open up the game for Breece Hall and Aaron Rodgers, it helped them win now. They have to win in these next 2 years. It's Joe Alt. They can't wait for Olu to take that step or to put on that weight to become that run blocker and reach his ceiling. He might reach it in year one, but that's a gamble they cannot take. Like, if you're a Jets fan, like, you can't be on board with taking this gamble. You have to take Joe Alt, who might be better than Olu when it's said and done. And you're getting him at pick 10. This is a top 7 prospect. I'm still working on my big board, but, like, Joe, I'm a huge fan of Joe Alt. You watch the tape, there's no weakness in his game. He is just an alpha male dominant player. I mean, okay, Vikings at pick 11. This was a very, very tough pick for me. My corner rankings, I have the players tiered. I'm still back and forth on my corner one. It's between Cooper DeJean and Terrion Arnold. Terrion Arnold might be the best mover at the corner position in the whole class. I mean, he's just on another level with his movement skills. He had a breakout year. Big part of that was teams did not want to target Kool-Aid McKinstry. People keep saying Kool-Aid McKinstry had a bad year, but, like, no, he was so good that teams didn't even throw at him. I think he had like 80 targets on the year. It was something absurd. So Kool-Aid came into the year as a top 10 pick. Now we're seeing him at pick 20, and it's not because he played bad. It's because other people around him played well, and he continued to play at the same level that had him as a top 10 pick. I mean, it's not like Keely Ringo of last year, who came in as the first round pick, fell all the way to the fourth round because he just got burnt so bad throughout the college season. Or fifth round pick. I forgot where Keely ended up going. But with the Vikings, I ended up going Terrion Arnold. And it really was just for no specific reason, to be honest. It's between him and Cooper DeJean at this pick. I'm a huge fan of Cooper DeJean. I mean, Cooper DeJean is a freak athlete. He scored, I think he had like, PFF did a really good rundown of Cooper DeJean's other sport accolades. I mean, he played baseball varsity for 3 years. He was recruited as a quarterback. He had, I think his senior year, he had over 50 touchdowns rushing and passing combined. He had over 3,000 passing yards with like over 1,000 rushing yards. I mean, state champion track runner. The kid is an absolute freak. I did just see, what's his name? Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 1.0 just came out, and he was super, super, super high on Terrion Arnold. And again, like, there was really no backing behind this. It was either Cooper DeJean or Terrion Arnold. I can't. And my tweet about the Giants-Chargers trade, just for the record, was you could check the timestamp, came out before Daniel Jeremiah released his mock draft, just by the way. Okay, Broncos at pick 12. I thought about this pick for probably 15 minutes or more. There's so many ways you could go if you're the Broncos. I thought about going Byron Murphy. I thought about going Cooper DeJean. I thought about taking Jared Verse or other edge rushers. But I gotta be honest with you. The more I study Bo Nix, I know this is gonna piss people off, but I just gotta say my piece. Correct me tell me I'm wrong in the comments, and I'm not gonna say you're wrong. I'm just gonna hear the argument out, and if you change my mind, you change my mind. Bo Nix, the analytics on Bo Nix are impressive. I mean, a lot of people have such a bad taste in their mouth about Bo Nix from his time at Auburn, but if you watched him at Oregon this past year, like, I just want to pull this up. I mean, you're looking at a kid who's 6'2", 215, prototypical size. He does everything well. He does everything you ask him. And how I landed on Bo Nix for the Broncos was like, again, everything's up in the air with Russ, but you have a player who doesn't create his own pressures. I compared all of the quarterback stats. I'll link it in the description for the tweet I put out. But you have a player who he's not creating sacks. He knows how to operate within a system. And he's very efficient when he takes his passes down, when he takes his shots downfield. It helps when you have Troy Franklin and, you know, some of these guys that he was in a good offensive line that he had. I mean, he had the best center in college football, and Jackson Powers Johnson. But I mean, this is a kid who just he has the elite traits that we talk about every year. I don't know why Bo Nix isn't being talked about more. I think it's because people are worried he was so protected in his system, which is valid. But I mean, he was one of the best passers. He was one of the most efficient passers in college football, and I think that's what Sean Payton wants. He wants someone who's going to, like, if Sean Payton could have a 6'3" Drew Brees, I think he would take that gamble. I mean, they did just sign Stidham to a 2-year extension, so I get that, but like, I don't think the Broncos are necessarily ready to plop Bo Nix in and have him play year one. But who says you need to? Like, I think so many people get scared because they're like, oh, you can't draft a quarterback when the team's not ready. That's not true. You don't have to draft a quarterback and feed him to the wolves like a lot of these teams do, like what the Panthers did with Bryce Young. So I think that Bo Nix is going to be, if he gets paired up with Sean Payton, it'll be a very good pairing. Like I mentioned at the top of the video, landing spot matters the most for these quarterbacks, in my opinion. There are 30 out of 32 quarterbacks who can be as successful as they are at any landing spot, I think. But with all that being said, we got the Raiders at 13. This was a pick that I don't think you go quarterback. I just don't think that Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy are locked in round one picks. And there's going to be opportunities for these teams like the Raiders, if they really want one of them, to trade back into the first and take them. But what I did with the Antonio Pierce hiring, I thought, let's go defense and help out Max Crosby. And we're going to take one of my personal favorite players and someone who's obviously getting a ton of buzz right now, Byron Murphy. I mean, Byron Murphy, like, everybody is all over Johnny Newton from Illinois, but you just, like, you don't get interior defenders like Byron Murphy often. I mean, there's T'Vondre Sweat from Texas as well, but the difference between T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy is an interior defensive lineman. T'Vondre Sweat is a nose tackle. Nose tackles are not nearly as important in the NFL as interior defensive linemen who can get into the backfield as often as Byron Murphy. I mean, Byron Murphy is just a dominant player. The other positions I was thinking about was edge. Jared Verse is on the board, but Malcolm Kuntz kind of took a step this year, so I don't know if it's like you have to go edge here. Interior defensive linemen, I mean, think of Dexter Lawrence, are so impactful, almost as impactful as edge rushers because they just disrupt everything. But cornerback is also in play. Like Cooper DeJean, I think definitely could go here. I just think with how aggressive Antonio Pierce was and how the defense elevated with Antonio Pierce, I didn't look at the splits of when he took over head coaching or before, but I do know that I've seen them that they're very drastic. So I think there's like let's help Pierce set up his side of the ball, and then maybe you go get a vet or you go get someone that can help you win now. I don't really know. The Saints and the Raiders kind of go hand in hand with their just franchises with very vague directions. Like I don't really know where they're trying to go. Speaking of the Saints at pick 14, I think this was an easier pick than not. Talisi Fuaga, top 3 tackle in the class, plug and play at right tackle. Mauler in the run game. They're probably going to get out of that Alvin Kamara contract, but Kendre Miller was a very good prospect from last year. He flashed when he played, but he was hurt for most of this year. And I think you kind of just got to write off Trevor Penning at this point, like you missed. It's okay, it happens. Maybe try him out at guard, see if he could develop there, and put Fuaga at right tackle. But with the Colts at pick 15, this is where everything kind of gets thrown off, is because you're probably going to extend Kenny Moore, but the rest of your secondary is very okay. The 2 priorities for the Colts I see this offseason is you have a ton of money, which is great, but a lot of that money is going to go to Kenny Moore and Michael Pittman. And I think edge is in play here, but I think that with the edges on the board, the 2 corners left are better prospects. And with how the Colts have structured their team, I think they like those freak athlete guys. Like, we saw them take Julius Brents pretty high last year. Julius Brents was a potential first-round pick, so I'm not saying they reached on him, but they took Anthony Richardson. Like, they like those made-in-a-lab type players. So I think that Nate Wiggins at 6'2", 185, just a freak athlete. I think he's going to have a really good combine. I think this is the move for them. I think the Jared Verse is in play. Definitely in contention here for the Colts. But secondaries, I think, is the biggest need for them at the moment. So we're going to go and take Nate Wiggins. Seahawks at 16. Very interesting. And I know people are going to hate this pick, but I'm not taking it for the reasons you're thinking. And just by saying that, you probably know who I'm going to take. But edge was in play. But I think with Boye Mafe and Uchenna Nwosu, I don't think you need edge right here. The offensive line is just so bad from Charles Cross over. I'm forgetting your right tackle, but he was hurt for most of this year. Abraham Lucas. Great rookie season. He was pretty hurt this past year, but the pick I'm going to make, dude, and I'm not taking it for any of that bull crap of like hometown connections or whatever. It's Troy Fautanu. Because like the thing with Troy Fautanu is people want to hate on the smaller tackles, but like we've seen so many of them in today's NFL be successful. Like look at Peter Skoronski. Worried about him playing tackle, started him out at guard, an emergency situation, he needed to play tackle, was perfectly fine. The difference between Skoronski and Fautanu is Fautanu can play center. So you can take this kid and you have at least an average or above average player anywhere on the line. You're not going to put him at left tackle, and you're probably not going to put him at right tackle. So my guess is he'll fill in at left guard right away. But it's a passing league. Like you want someone who played in an air raid offense like Washington had with Michael Penix and Rome Odunze and all those guys. Jalen Polk. Fautanu's going to, like, he's a good run blocker as well, but like I can't sell enough like how good of a pass protector he is. And this is a passing league. Like, The other option I thought of was going Michael Penix, which not for the Washington connection. He would just be next up on my QB big board, I guess. But anyways, Jaguars at 17. This pick, I can say this about every single pick, but this pick will become way clearer after free agency. But the 2 priorities for the Jaguars, I forget how much money they have in free agency. They have a good bit. I think they have definitely over $30 million. I think. Actually, I could check. Whatever. It's over like $30 million or so. The 2 priorities for them are similar to the Colts. You have to re-sign Josh Allen. Like, you cannot let him go in free agency, in my opinion. And the other thing is, you got to let Calvin Ridley walk. Not that he played bad, but you got to get T. Higgins. Like, you have to get Trevor Lawrence, T. Higgins somehow, because we saw what they did at Clemson together. Like, get a wide receiver 1 who Trevor Lawrence is comfortable with, has played with for years, had immense success with. The other thing is, I think that the offensive line needs to be touched up as well. So you're probably going to have to build that through the draft. But with the first round pick, I don't really see any more guards worthy of a top 20 pick. I thought about going corner here, but if you had to let Josh Allen walk in free agency, if that ended up being the case, I think Latu is the pick here. I mean, I know that the Jaguars like those kind of like the Colts made in a lab type players because they took Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson because Aiden Hutchinson's arms were too short. So Jared Verse was also in play, but Latu is the best edge on the board at this point. I mean, if you look at his production, it's just insane. I don't think I've ever seen a number this high on PFF ever. And it's not like he played bad against good talent. It's not like he had any dip games where he was in the 60s or 50s against good offensive line play. Like you have, I'm forgetting his name right now. I'm blanking on it. It's Jordan Morgan, I think, from Arizona. Talisi Fuaga at Oregon State. Like, he just balls out, man. Like, I just think that the concern with him, again, I don't think it is. The concern with him is the neck injury. I mean, medically retiring from football twice is a huge red flag. This is a potential top 5 pick. Maybe not top 5 because of the quarterbacks, but like a top 5 prospect. Definitely top 2 at his position between Dallas Turner and him. And I honestly think he's better than Dallas Turner. He's not as good of an athlete, but from a production standpoint, it's not even close. But anyway, Bengals at pick 18. I think they're going to want the plug-and-play player, which is why I'm going to go with J.C. Latham at right tackle, because Jonah Williams is leaving in free agency in the offensive tackle class. Free agency offensive tackle class is pretty bad. I'm way lower, just for the record. I am way lower on J.C. Latham than a lot of people. And I'm not talking about the one play from the Michigan game. It's not what I'm referring to. But it is an example. Just, there are so many instances where his tape is like, wow, this is elite offensive line play. The other side of the spectrum is, wow, this is god-awful offensive line play. How is this guy going to go in the first round? And as a Giants fan, this reminds me of Evan Neal, where it's like you have this freak crazy prospect, but he gets to the league and it's like, how did you go top 10? But again, I think that has a lot to do with coaching. I could talk to you all day about how bad Bobby Johnson is at his job, or was at his job because he got fired, thank God. But J.C. Latham's going to come plug and play at right tackle. We'll see how it pans out. I'm lower on him than a lot of people. I know a lot of people think he's the next coming of Christ, but that's not how I view him. So, I mean, it was that or Amarius Mims, and I think with where the Bengals are, you don't want a project like Amarius Mims, even though I love Amarius Mims. I'm always a huge fan of Georgia tackles. I don't helmet scout, but if there's a Georgia tackle, I'm probably going to be higher on him than not, just by the nature of what they've produced over the past years, like Andrew Thomas, Broderick Jones, and now Amarius Mims. I don't know if I forgot anybody in between, but pick 19 is the Rams. If you watch the wild card game, they ruined my bracket, which was perfect at the time. It still would be perfect if, they won. But part of the reason they didn't win is because they could not get to the backfield at all. They generated no pressure, aside from Aaron Donald. So, for me, you go ahead and they've been so good at drafting, but if Jared Verse falls to you at 19, you thank God. Because that's exactly the type of the player they need for their pass rush, because it is terrible. God-awful. Then we have Steelers at pick 20. So, I went back and forth on this. Again, left tackle is a huge need. I just don't know if Jordan Morgan is in play at pick 20. I mean, he's a stud. And he is a player who tore his ACL late last year, came back, played the whole season, has over 2,000 snaps, I think, at left tackle over his college career. I mean, the dude's a grinder. And he's really good at what he does. But I think with what's left of the corners in this draft, currently, in this mock draft, you have to take Cooper DeJean. Like, you got to get someone aside from Joey Porter who, can do anything. And I think with Cooper DeJean and Joey Porter, you're going to have one of the best young corner duos for a very long time. Like I said at the top, Cooper DeJean and Terrion Arnold are 1A, 1B to me. You asked me on Tuesday, I might say DeJean. You asked me on Wednesday, I might say Arnold. I don't know. The reason why I went Nate Wiggins in the middle is just because of what I think the Colts will do, not what I would do. Again, if it was what I would do, I would have taken DeJean. But that's not how this mock is going, or will go. But with DeJean, like, you're getting a top tier player. I don't know why he was. I saw him really, really low. It might have been in Daniel Jeremiah's mock that he was like he went at the Cardinals at 27, I think. But the thing with Daniel Jeremiah's mock is a lot of his mock 1.0s, or almost all of his mock 1.0s, are what he's hearing. So it's early in the draft process. It's January. He's hearing buzz from these NFL executives whose seasons are over at this point. I mean, there are going to be... The Chiefs game is going on right now, so I'm missing that game to bring you guys a mock draft. So if you would like, comment, subscribe, that'd be awesome. But, I mean, by the end of tonight, there's going to be 4 teams left in their 2023 season. So a lot of teams, almost, 28 teams at this point, are on to the offseason. They're on to drafts. So they're talking about trades and all that stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But pick 21, I looked at this for a long time. And everybody that I've talked to that's a Dolphins fan will say we need offensive line help. My pushback to that is kind of similar to the 2021 Buccaneers. Mike McDaniel's scheme is so good at protecting his offensive linemen. It's not that big of a need right now. Again, kind of similar to the DeJean pick. Kool-Aid McKinstry, to me, is being very disrespected. He's... The tier 1 corner is 4 corners. It's Arnold, DeJean, McKinstry, and Wiggins in any order. Except I would have Arnold and DeJean at the top, and then flip-flop Nate Wiggins. Still tier 1. That's a tier 1. Those are tier 1 corners. With where we're... The only way that I would change this pick to Jordan Morgan at this current moment is if Terrence Armstead retired today. Then you need a left tackle. You have to draft a left tackle. Because in my opinion, left tackle is like the second most important position in football. Obviously behind quarterback, but Philadelphia Eagles at 22. Secondary is garbage. And I really like the idea of going Amarius Mims here because I was trying to think of where I would put Amarius Mims. Amarius Mims needs to go somewhere where he does not have to play right away. And I think with Lane Johnson playing for another year at the moment, would be the perfect spot for Amarius Mims. Why I didn't put Amarius Mims to the Eagles is because I think Lane Johnson retires. I have no idea if he will, but it's just the vibe I'm getting. There's no backing to this. It's just the vibe I'm getting. I think Lane Johnson retires, in which case Amarius Mims probably not the best pick. So with who I did pick here, you don't need interior defensive linemen with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. Receivers in play, but you're going to extend Devontae Smith. You have like $33 million in cap space with more to come. So I didn't think receiver was super necessary. I didn't think edge was super necessary. So I took the next corner that I have in my list. This is not what I would do. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to go corner. I'm sorry. This is not the next corner I have on my list. I just totally lied. I think that they need corner, and I think that this corner is getting a lot of first-round hype, and I want to highlight him with this pick in Quinyon Mitchell. To me, Quinyon Mitchell is like Cooper DeJean light, where he was, I think he ran like his high school track time. I mean, this is absurd. It was like a 10.66, which is flying. I mean, the knock on Quinyon Mitchell is he doesn't like to play press man. It's not on his film. You cannot find that on his film. He's way more comfortable in off-ball zone, off-ball man coverage. He has incredible closing speed. I mean, it doesn't really matter that he plays as far back as he does because he's so good. I think he has 5 picks on the year. 4 of them came from one game where he made this absurd play for his first pick, and then the quarterback just kept throwing at him. Don't know why. But anyway, pick 23. A lot of people want to go receiver here, and I don't think it's necessary. This receiver class is deep. Tank Dell was like an elite slot. I would put him in the category of elite slot receiver before he broke his leg. Nico Collins probably would have got drafted a lot higher if he didn't play at Michigan, just because of the offense they run there. And Nico Collins, analytically, like I mentioned, like I'm an analytic nerd, has been fine throughout his NFL career. He's been held back by quarterback play. Obviously, you put Stroud in there, Nico Collins pops off. Like, Nico Collins, to me, is a wide receiver 1. I think he's only going to get better. He's only he played so well in the playoffs with pretty good, I mean, he eviscerated the Colts, and then he eviscerated the Browns, who are, like, the best, and they played man coverage against, because they thought C.J. Stroud, analytics said, from what I read, analytics pointed to C.J. Stroud played worse against man coverage. So the Browns played the Colts the Texans basically in entirely man zone or man coverage, and Nico Collins obliterated some of the best corners in football. So I don't think you need to go receiver. What I would do is, and not what I would do, I shouldn't say that, but what the Texans should do, and what I think they will do, is you have a defensive coach with D'Amico Ryans. Your edge rushers have been playing very well. You have a lot of money this offseason, so you could add someone at this position. But I would take Johnny Newton. Like, continue to build that defensive front where they took a massive step being able to stop the run this year. And now you add Johnny Newton, who is just lives in the backfield. Just the rich get richer, I guess, in this respect. But pick 24, we got the Cowboys. I thought about edge here, but I like Amarius Mims. I think they need right tackle to replace Terrence Steele. And I think that Amarius Mims will have the opportunity to win that job. I think Terrence Steele will have the job, and this is why another reason why I like Amarius Mims to the Cowboys. I mean, I don't like him here as a Giants fan, but like why I like him here to the Cowboys is the Cowboys are very, very good, exceptionally one of the top in the league franchises at developing offensive linemen. So I think if you get this player like Amarius Mims, who great character player, very invested into the game, just was supposed to take a step this year and got hurt. So he only ended up playing like 8 games. The film is good. He needs work as a pass protector, but we've seen Dallas develop these players over and over and over again. So I like Amarius Mims here at Dallas at pick 24. Pick 25, the Packers. In my opinion, and what I think they're going to do, because the Packers are a very smart organization. I've talked mad crap about the Packers over the past few years. They've proved me wrong. I'll shut up about it. I think they need to get an insurance plan for David Bakhtiari. There could be an opportunity for them to trade him to the Jets. You know, could happen. Don't think it will happen, but could happen. I think you, obviously, with opening at left tackle, you take Jordan Morgan and make him the heir apparent to David Bakhtiari. And in the case that David Bakhtiari stays, Jordan Morgan doesn't have to play right away. I think he would plug and play at left guard. But I think that David Bakhtiari, with the question marks about health, and, I mean, this is me speculating, but it's a very real speculation, trading him to the Jets if they can't land a tackle at the top of the draft makes a lot of sense. I mean, the Packers just keep building, stacking these picks, and hitting on every single pick. They took Jaden Reed last year, who was one of my favorite receivers in the class. I think I had him ranked 4th. But I just unplugged my headphones. All right, we're plugged back in. They just keep hitting on picks. So, I mean, if they wanted to get more picks for Dave Bakhtiari and ship him to the Jets, I don't blame them. I think it's a good move. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, unfortunately, at this point, they just lost to the Lions. What I think their edge rushers are starting to turn the corner. Like Shoyinka, someone who a lot of people had high expectations for, hasn't quite lived up to it, but he's been playing well. Where they need help desperately, and I think what's hampered their run game, like why they cannot run the ball since Tom Brady was quarterback there, is their interior is garbage. I mean, it is terrible. So people might say this is a reach. I don't think it is personally, but I went with Graham Barton from Duke. I think he's just a plug-and-play guard. Files right in at left guard. I think I forgot who your left guard is, but I think he's like I know he's not good, but I don't have the numbers in front of me to dive into all that. Cardinals, I think this is a nightmare scenario because for the Cardinals, ideally, I mean, it's not a nightmare scenario. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., so I mean, I'm saying nightmare scenario because this could be so much better if there's a better corner here or Johnny Newton fell. But someone who I'm not as high on as a lot of people are, because I've started my film study on the Edge class. From a size perspective, and I tweeted this out. So follow me on Twitter. Tweet a lot about prospects throughout the week. Braylon Trice just reminds me so much of George Karlaftis. That's my comp for him. They have the similar size, small arms. I think he has small arms. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he has. He's on the smaller side of the spectrum in terms of arm length. And he's just a speed to power rusher with no toolbox. Like, I mean, it's just power. And then he has this pretty cool Euro step type move where he'll fake outside, come inside, and then, I mean, it works. It's all over his tape, but it's very successful. Just at the NFL level, you're going to need more. And with what we've seen from Karlaftis, like, I don't know if, looking back on it, do you think Karlaftis is worth a first-round pick? I think Karlaftis that year was pick 32, so I'm not bashing that pick by any means. But could you gamble on Chris Braswell, who isn't as polished but is a freak athlete? Yeah, you absolutely could. But I think with, what's his name? Dennis Gardeck playing right end, and Braylon Trice typically plays right end, I would go ahead and take Trice. I don't know if Chris Braswell plays right end off the top of my head. So, I mean, if Braswell is lining up on the right side, then maybe you just take Braswell. And because the Cardinals do like those freaky guys. Like, a lot of these teams, I think all teams prefer the made in a lab type player that I keep saying. But not all of them are as obsessed with them like the Colts or some of these other teams are. I can't remember if the Cardinals are one of those teams off the top of my head. Because I know they took his B.J. Ojulari last year, who I was really high on. And he was a smaller size prospect. So, good pick. I mean, that was a great pick in the second round. But I don't know if... Anyway, Chiefs at pick 28. So these two back-to-back picks are going to be whoever's left. And right now, I have Troy Franklin as wide receiver 4, and I think he's a way better fit for what the Chiefs do than what Brian Thomas does. Brian Thomas is that go up and get it. I'm gonna beat you up. I'm gonna head top you, and make you look silly and put you on a highlight reel. Troy Franklin is you're never gonna catch me. I'm gonna run this post. I'm gonna run this drag. I'm gonna run this in and. I'm going to score, and you're not gonna know. Like Troy Franklin is so fast, and like the advanced metrics, like average depth of target, yards per route run. Troy Franklin's at the top. Brian Thomas analytical profile. I'm having a hard time with Brian Thomas because his analytical profile is on Twitter. I already did all this work, so follow me on Twitter. I'll put it in the comments. Isn't that great? But the tape is really good. Like. I was so high on Rashee Rice. I had him in the first round last year. And then I chickened out when I did my rankings on Twitter. That's where I usually put my rankings because I haven't done prospect videos, which I probably am going to do this year. I want to do that this year. That's a goal of mine, to get prospect videos out. But Brian Thomas, his tape is awesome. Analytics are not awesome. They're very average. Troy Franklin's tape is awesome and his analytics are awesome. And I think that the Chiefs just like having like the Marcus Valdes-Scantling type player where he just goes and then Patrick Mahomes throws him a touchdown. I think that's what they want. And that's what they're going to get with Troy Franklin. I think for the Bills, they need that contested catch guy. That guy who's going to what Gabe Davis was supposed to be. And this is your Gabe Davis replacement who's he's better than Gabe Davis in my opinion. I'm a big Gabe Davis fan. He's just probably the most inconsistent player in football. Like, I mean, it is what it is. I wouldn't pay him this offseason. I don't think you need to unless you could get him on like a team-friendly deal. But you have Khalil Shakir, who's going to play the slot. Obviously, you have Diggs. Brian Thomas has wide receiver 1 take over the game type upside that Gabe Davis just does not have. I mean, he's still I'm talking about Thomas. Thomas Jr. is still that player who can take the top off defenses. He's very fast. He has incredible short area quickness for his size. I think he's 6'4". Let's see what they have him as. Yeah, he's 6'4". This is what the Bills are just missing, man. Like, they need that player who's just going to... I mean, I don't know what happened to Stephon Diggs this year. I don't know. Pick 20 or 30, I'm sorry, is the Lions. And I think with how this board has shaped out, ideally I wanted to go interior offensive line because, like, you're going to extend Jared Goff. You have to keep him protected, like, at all costs, because the moment teams get pressure on Jared Goff, you lose. That's the kryptonite of the Lions. And I'm a big Jared Goff fan, but I'm just keeping it 100% honest. If Jared Goff gets pressured, you will lose the game. If you could keep him clean and let him stand there and throw, you will go to the NFC Championship like you currently are. But with there not being really an offensive lineman available, I like the idea of getting Chris Braswell on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson because you need that edge too really, really bad. Yeah, anyway. Niners at pick 31. I'm going to highlight a player that I really like, and I think he is next up on... This is a me pick. I'm just saying that for the 49ers fans out there. This is a me pick. You need corner. I think corner is definitely in play. Ayuk's getting extended. You're not going to let Ayuk out the door. You're not going to trade him. I don't care what anybody says. People talk on Twitter all the time. Like, you're not... Ayuk is one of the best route... It might be the best route runner in football. You're not letting him leave. I like TJ Tampa for the 49ers. This is arguably, in my opinion, he might be the most violently physical corner in the class. 6 foot, 200 pounds. He just screams to me 49er. I mean, I tweeted out a clip of TJ Tampa a few days ago of him just coming off coverage and, like, deleting someone. Like, don't know if they came back into the game. He hit them that hard. This kid, to me, just, like, he is, like, what I think of, like, when I see TJ Tampa, I think of the Ravens, the Steelers, and the 49ers. That should just tell you where I'm at with this kid if you haven't watched him yet. He is so physical, and I love it. I love it. I don't know if he'll go in the first. I hope he does. I think he's going to test out, and like he's going to be a freak at the combine, which will put him right here at pick 31 if he does. If he doesn't, he'll be like pick 37. Then last pick of the draft, the Ravens. There's so many free agents and like decisions to be made at wide receiver on this team. OBJ, do you bring him back? Bateman, got to start talking about extension talks. Is he worth the 5th-year option? You got Zay Flowers, who's lit. I love Zay Flowers. For me, I like this pick. And I think that this is, if they go receiver, which I would do, is the next man up. And it's Xavier Legette. I know that people like Adonai Mitchell. I'm not. I'm so much lower on Adonai Mitchell than everybody else. It's disgusting. Devontae Walker, this is too early to pick him, even though I'm a big fan. Xavier Legette. This kid is a man beater. He's okay in zone, against zone coverage. Man beater type player. Big, physical, very DK Metcalf type-esque. And I think that is what you need to add to this offense. Like, you have Mark Andrews, who kind of fills that role from tight end. Zay Flowers can play the slot, can play out wide. But to have that, like big body, run blocking, down the sideline, throw me a 50-50 ball, I'm going to get it. It is Xavier Legette. And I think that is... for how Lamar Jackson plays quarterback, where he's going to scramble or he's going to look for the open man in broken coverage, I want Xavier Legette to throw a 50-50 ball too. I also thought about Xavier Worthy. That's the player I forgot to put in this mock. But I am a huge Xavier Worthy fan. He's my wide receiver 5 at the moment. But I don't know if he's really like the type of player for the Ravens. Like that, he plays a similar type game to Zay Flowers. He's not nearly as polished as a route runner, but he's not like Xavier Worthy is kind of like Troy Franklin light, in my opinion. Where I think for the Ravens, you want that big body run blocking for their scheme, and then just to get that 50-50 ball from Lamar Jackson. But anyway, that's going to do it for this mock draft. This is my first mock draft of the year, so let me know what you think in the comments. If I say anything out of line or wrong about your team, please correct me. Because I want to give the best content possible. But But with all that being said, keep an eye on the channel. Please like, subscribe. We got more content coming. And if you're wondering about the farm stuff, I had to move my office into our kid's room. Kid loves farm animals. So, anyway, that's all for me. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.